All right, cool. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to be here with all of you as always. Let's see. So, it's a good topic, actually. It's a good topic. So we started the call before the recording went on, and you noticed that the bookshelves are empty and that Eden and I are moving. And I'll just turn a personal story into a little bit of training, if that's okay. Because I'm always happy to be transparent with you all and kind of take you through my own personal growth and what happens in my mind in hopes of kind of paying forward some what I've learned along the way. And so when this whole process started, and we really started exploring this process about 2 or 3 years ago. And for a variety of reasons, we started asking bigger questions. What do we want our lifestyle to look like? What are some of our financial goals? What makes the most sense for us in terms of overall environment? And so when everything happened last year, it obviously had heightened our awareness around some of the reasons we might want to consider leaving California. And I don't expect any of you to pay attention to what goes on in the States, economically or anything along those lines, but there's a lot of people leaving California right now. There's a huge exodus actually of people leaving California for a number of reasons. And so as Eden and I started to explore our options, I noticed that even though intellectually I was excited for us to explore different possibilities and it made sense for us intellectually, emotionally, I was creating a huge amount of resistance to what was actually happening. And so the very first time we flew to Texas to kind of look at some homes and check out the environment and check up the area, I was actually fairly negative. I really was. I wasn't really, which might be surprising for some of you because not too often you experience me in a negative mood. So I was a little bit kind of, I don't know if I want to be here. I don't know if this is right. So I was looking at all the things about it that wouldn't work for us, right? I was looking at all the things that didn't make sense. And every time Eden saw something that she liked, I would figure out a way to bring it down. Okay, that I was being that guy our first trip. Well, the second time we went out, after saying, let's go give it another shot and let's keep looking, the next time we went out, what I noticed was that every time we went away from the actual city itself and kind of out into an area there where there was like more farmland and more space and kind of more suburban living, that's when I really started to contract. I really started to tighten up. It really didn't feel good for me. And so I said to Eden, I was like, something here doesn't feel right for me. I feel contracted. But when we get closer to the city, suddenly I would start to open up a little bit more. It would start to feel a little better. Okay. The third time we went to Austin, which was about 3 weeks ago, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with Austin in the first place. And what I'd fallen in love with Austin in the first place was the reality that Austin actually as a city is very European in style. Each little district has its own little culture to it, right? Like I know, obviously, if I'm in Amsterdam, there's a huge difference between if I'm in the, in the city center, if I'm in De Pijp, right? Did I say that correctly? Right? De Pijp, is that right? Pretty good. Okay. So I know there's a huge, even though it's just a couple neighborhoods away, right? There's still there's still its own little culture inside of each little part of Amsterdam. And so Austin also has that feeling. And so what I realized with how I'd been showing up was that I was really resistant because I hadn't put myself into an environment where I knew I was going to feel good about the overall decision. Okay, so that was part one. And then the other part that I realized, and this was the bigger one, the other part that I realized is I've moved around for a lot of my life. I haven't really stayed in one spot for very long. So this home that we've lived in for almost 3.5 years, believe it or not, is the longest I've lived in a single home since the time I was about 12 or 13 years old. Okay. So think about that for a second. So it's the longest I've lived in a single home since I was about 12 or 13 years old. So that's pretty insane when you think about it. And what I'd realized, what I said to Eden was, now I understand why I was contracting and why I was creating resistance. Because for the first time in my life, I felt rooted. I felt stable. I felt not comfortable, but complacent. And so what I was nervous about and what I didn't like the idea of was I know that the moment these boxes are packed and the moment we land in Texas, I no longer can be complacent. I'm in a new city with new energy, new vibes, new people, new streets I have to learn. I have to find a way to break out of kind of this life for the last year or so where I've just kind of been going through the motions in a very comfortable kind of way. And I didn't like the idea of that unconsciously. And so what I started to take a look at was, what do I value most? What do I value more? Do I value the expansion that exists on the other side of me, removing myself from our current environment? Or do I value staying here, knowing that staying here for our long-term lifestyle goals makes absolutely zero sense? And so the reason I thought maybe I'd share this with you all tonight, and it looks like some people are resonating with this, but feel free to drop some comments in the box so I know I'm on track with all of you, is the question of how often do we do that? How often do we get so complacent and so comfortable kind of going through the motions of what we know we're good at doing that we resist the very thing that we know can expand us even more so if we're willing to kind of take that new action? And one of the most humbling parts of this experience so far was we have this incredible woman who's been working with us for the last 3 years at our home. She comes twice a week and she helps around the house, and she's amazing. And we were sharing with her that, we've decided to leave, and she kind of cried a little bit and we cried a little bit, and we talked about our plan for, for her to take care of her and stuff for a couple months. And, after that original conversation had ended, I said to her, I said, I'm sad. And, just very simply, she said, Zach, and she said in Spanish, she said, los cambios son buenos. She said, los cambios son buenos. And for those of you that speak Spanish, what that means is just very simply put, change is good. Change is good. And so sometimes we experience change in our life because other people make changes in their lives. And so we obviously are impacted by that. And then other times we put ourselves into an environment where we know change is necessary as well. And so what I really want you to start to pay attention to is, as you experience change in your life, whether other people are making changes in their lives or you decide to make a change in yours, how stuck in on your ultimate value system are you staying focused on versus how much of your old value system, your old identity, are you staying attached to? See, my identity was very attached to the idea of living in San Diego, California. And the reason my identity was attached to living in San Diego was for years and years. When I wrote my affirmations, you want to know what I wrote? I said, I live in an ocean view dream home in La Jolla, California. For years and years, that's what I wrote on my affirmations. I live in an ocean view dream home in La Jolla, California. I live in an ocean view dream home in La Jolla, California. So when we moved into this house, the little boy in me was so excited. But then as we started to look at moving, the ego man in me was not having it at all. And so my ego has been raging. What does it mean that I'm leaving San Diego? What does it mean that I'm leaving this place that I always aspired to be in? What does it mean that that I have to go to a new city and make new friends, blah, 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 blah? What will it mean for me on a personal level? Will I become more creative, or will I feel more suppressed? And so all of these questions started to come up for me, and all of the ego started to rage and roar. And guess who that ego raging and roaring impacted in a negative way? Not just me, but also Eden. Because I was so committed to being right in my ego that I wasn't willing to hear and feel all of the reasons that we had to be excited. And so when Eden would talk to me about, well, there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this, well, I was like a person with a fly swatter. Nope, 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 nope. I was the negative crab in the bucket because my ego didn't want to hear it. I couldn't come to terms emotionally with the intellectual reality of why what we were doing is a smart decision. So I know I'm not alone. Drop a 1 in the chat box if any of you can relate to any of this. I see a couple of chats in there. And I don't know if the timing of this is the right time or whatever it is. I'm just always totally comfortable being transparent with all of you. And the reason I want to be transparent with all of you is that so you understand that regardless of how successful you see anybody in this world, regardless of how much money they make, regardless of how many thousands of people you see them speaking on in front of stages and the recognition and blah, 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 none of that matters. None of it matters because at the end of the day, we're all human. And we're all having this really wild, crazy human experience, especially over the last year and a half, where so many of us have been really forced to look at what really matters in life. Wouldn't you agree with that? And so just as much as the world has been experiencing this kind of deep experience of self-exploration, so have we, and so have I. And so I think the thing I just want to keep coming back to with all of you is taking a step back and looking at it for a moment and asking yourself the question of, what are the environments in where I feel contracted? And what are the environments in which I feel expanded? When I'm around certain people, do I lock up or do I open up? When I see certain people's posts on social, do I contract or do I expand? Okay. The next part of it is, okay, what am I resisting right now? What am I resisting right now that intellectually I know is a healthy decision for me, but emotionally and egotistically, I'm avoiding taking that action? Okay, so that's another question we can ask ourselves. Okay. And then the third question we can ask ourselves is, am I currently affecting the situation in a healthy and positive way, or am I infecting the situation in an unhealthy and negative way? And I think that one of the most powerful forms of personal growth and personal development is, are we willing to take a step back and raise our hands and go, yeah, you know what, right now I'm being the asshole, excuse my language. Right now, I'm the one slowing down the process. Right now, I'm the one that's being contracted. Right now, I'm the one that's being negative. But it wasn't until I was willing to take ownership of that and acknowledge it, and in which then Eden and I could have a conversation where it could actually flow and open up. And guess what? As soon as that started to happen, guess what happened? Perfect property, boom, in our laps. Perfect neighborhood, boom, in our laps. We didn't want to be too far away from water. Great, we're walking distance to the river. We wanted to be close to restaurants and bars. Boom, everything within 5 minutes, right? So the minute I was willing to let go of my ego and to stop resisting the reality of the fact that it was important and smart for us to move, everything started to open up. And just like Michelle said, when I chose to surrender, when I took my own advice and my own coaching, the reason I have a tattoo that says surrender on my arm, when I was willing to choose and surrender, God, the universe, energy, whatever you want to call it, delivered perfectly to me, as it always does. Now, the reason it's important also that I share this story with you is because remember, I've been doing personal growth for years and years and years. I've been teaching this stuff for years and years and years. But that doesn't mean that I don't have an ego that I have to fight with every moment of every single day. So what I want to bring you back to is, no matter how many books you've read, no matter how many awards you've won, no matter how many seminars you've attended, no matter how many stages you've spoken on, none of it means anything if we don't continually take a moment to self-reflect and become aware of who we're being and how we're contributing to any given moment at any given time. And so the second question, Debbie, was something along the lines of, what is it that I'm resisting, right? What is it that I know is intellectually waiting for me that I'm resisting from both an ego level and an emotional level? What is that thing that I'm resisting? So again, the other thing that starts to happen is, and we can apply all things to this business, right? And that's what's really cool about network marketing. I was actually having a conversation with a friend yesterday. I think what's really cool about network marketing is network marketing basically just takes a magnifying glass, right? You know what a magnifying glass is? Makes everything bigger. It's a magnifying glass on the human experience. So we get to witness all of the emotions, all of the highs, all of the lows, but we get to do it in a community with people who are also on a trajectory of desired growth in that capacity. So it becomes a very safe environment, at least within the culture of our group, I feel, where we can have these kinds of exploratory conversations and start to grow ourselves. Because what's on the other side of that type of growth and that type of self-reflection, believe it or not, the speed at which you're able to start to recognize how you're denying yourself taking action in your life, the sooner you make moves that create more flow for you. And so I'd be willing to bet, if you just stuck in and spent some time on those two brief questions, okay, Those brief questions. What are the environments that I'm around that make me feel contracted versus expanded? And also part of that same question is, who are the people I'm around that make me feel contracted or expanded? Okay. And also, what is it that I know that is intellectually an intelligent, healthy, smart, wonderful decision that's in alignment with my goals that I'm actually resisting from an ego and emotional level? And so when we can start to learn how to dance between those two sides of who we are, the intellect and the emotional part of us, and we can start to learn how to listen to which one in any given environment, then the speed at which you can move through life is rapid. And the reason you can move through life at such a rapid speed is because you start to clear out all of the debris. Okay. So what I want you to imagine is that your life is kind of like a boat out in the ocean, and all of the people that contract us, the toxic environments, the negative news, the haters, if you will, the stories that we tell ourselves, the jobs that we hate, the kids that drive us crazy, whatever it is. I want you to imagine all of that is as debris. You know what debris is, right? Trash. It's trash that's blocking your ability in the boat to go as fast as you could possibly go. But the more quickly we learn how to marry our intellect and our emotional ways of being, the more quickly that debris starts to float away, clearing a path for us to get to our destination a little bit more quickly. And then what's nice is you still encounter debris like I just talked about, but there's far less of it. And the reason there's far less of it is because you've learned how to eliminate all of that stuff in a way in which it can never find its way back to you. Does that make sense? Make sense? So we're going to wrap up a little bit early, but when I just kind of checked in and I asked myself the question of what makes sense to share with everybody tonight, I said, you know what, let me just share my experience and hopefully there'll be some value in that for all of you. So with that being said, I'm going to post in the group, what did you learn? I also want to let Steve get back to the golf as quickly as humanly possible. I don't want to miss too many holes there. I'll post in the group, what did you learn? Hopefully you took some things away from this evening. Also, keep your eye on that clock when it comes to the crystal reset. Obviously, you guys are off to a hot start and it's really, really exciting. But again, thank you for being with us this evening. And also thank you on a personal level for holding space and allowing me to know that I can feel safe with our team and with all of you, sharing my own personal experiences that are happening in my life as well. And then it's not just all about business all the time. And then there's the way we can relate life to business, of course. So have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all that you do. Lots of love, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.